stop, stick around, come through and dig the sound of the fly brown 6060 cycle. Who thought
Welcome to another exciting episode of Wind Down with Kev. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to watch us on live stream, to listen to us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you. Another big thank you to all of our subscribers. If you like the content that we're producing here, if you haven't hit the subscribe button already, there's no time like now to subscribe and get notifications on YouTube. Also, big thanks to our sponsors, Carol Media and Canopy Connect. All things social, all things digital. Please check them out. They've helped me out and they'll help you out as well. So today we continue on our journey. 50 podcasts, 50 agents, 50 states, and today is no different. We have a phenomenal agent that is licensed in multiple states. I probably can check off 10% of the list with this agent. I'm going to give him a warm introduction. He's voted the best agent in his area. He's heavily involved in his community. We're going to talk about that. But here is the catch for this one. This gentleman is a third generation Allstate agent. So without any further delay or ado, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Schwab. Alex, how we doing, brother? We doing okay today?
Today is a good day, Kevin. Thanks for having me on, joining the conversation.
No, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. So I open the podcast up the same way every time. Tell me what you love about being an Allstate agent. And we're joking offline about the Corleone family. You were born into the business, and every time you tried to get out, they drug you back in. But tell me about what you love about being an Allstate agent first, and we'll do a deep dive into the family right afterwards.
Simply put, I just love everything about it. I mean, I love the game. I get excited going into the office every day because it's challenging. It's always going to be new. It's always evolving. It's always pushing me. I'm a person who has an attitude of gratitude, and I always maintain the attitude of a student. So I just love this career so much just because you're always learning, you're always, pushing, you're always improving. I love the people aspect of it, as challenging as it is. It's never dull. I mean, it's just a wonderful career. To simply put it, I love the game even more than what the game gives me. It's just everything I ever wanted in a career.
Alex, the way you answered that question, people watching and listening to this podcast, they wish their favorite athlete would answer the question that way. I love the game in addition to the challenges, the highs and lows that definitely come with this business. It is clear to me that you love this game. So speaking of the game, you are the Bronny James of this game. You were born in the business. Talk to me about the journey of, we've talked offline of your granddad to your dad and other family members. Bring us up to speed, because I think one of the beauties of the game for me is the generational aspect, the hope that my sons and my grandchildren, that one day they'll follow your path. So talk about what it was like for you being born into it.
I mean, it was very great, having a dad who was in it, just because, Kevin, I can honestly say I can never recall a time growing up where my dad said, "Hey, I can't be there for this because I'm working." I mean, I can remember going back to grade school, like, okay, you're in the grade school, talent contest, and you and your friends are gonna lip sync Huey Lewis in the News, Power of Love. All right, I'm driving from Baltimore down to come see you guys. I mean, wow. He was there for that. He was there for sports, practices. I was a competitive sailor in high school, if you can believe that. I mean, I competed on a national level, and I remember my senior year, the school said, "Well, we can't do this. We can't send you kids out to California. No teacher can go. We can't do that." My mom and dad stepped up, like, "We'll go. We'll take the kids." Wow. So
Wow.
it was, I mean, growing up, it was incredible. And my dad, he became a Hall of Fame agent with Allstate. I mean, he was consistently qualifying for award trips, and he and my mom, they took me along, on those trips as far back as I can remember, being 9 years old, going to London, 10, going to Paris. A lot of agents joke with him saying, like, what are you doing bringing your kid to this? This is like bringing sand to the beach. But he was always like, I want to show him what
Yes.
the potential of this, of what this can do. And so growing up with it, it was very cool. I didn't fully understand and comprehend it. I mean, he would occasionally, ask me to come up in the summertime and say, hey, can you reorganize, my paper files? And I would listen to him, and I'd listen to his team. And the same thing with my uncle, who was also an agent. When I could drive, I would get my car worked on at a place that was about a mile from his Allstate agency. And so instead of just sitting in a waiting room reading old Sports Illustrateds and watching bad soap operas, I'd walk a mile down the road to his office, and I'd just sit and I'd listen to him. He'd never have time to talk. He was always on the phone with clients nonstop. And I picked it up because I knew I would try it. I didn't think initially I was going to do it. My initial thought was I'd go be an English teacher.
Okay.
And I attended the College of Charleston. I majored in English. I got halfway through it, and I realized I don't want to be an English teacher.
Wow.
Well, no, what have I done? And I called my dad, after I did a little research, and he's like, so what are you thinking, bud? I said, well, Dad, I don't think I want to be an English teacher. Well, what do you want to do? Like, well, I don't know, maybe something business related. And he's like, well, okay, well, have you done your homework? So number one, can you change your degree halfway in and still graduate in 4 years? Because remember our deal, no 5-year plans.
Yes.
I'll help you for 4. And if you graduate in 4 with the grades, remember, I'll help you take a year off so you can go work overseas. I said, no, I can't graduate, in 4 years changing my major. And no, I can't minor in business. I've already, selected, communications as a minor because it's the closest thing. He goes, okay, we'll go do that.
Yes.
I said, what? I said, Dad, I don't want to be an English teacher. He goes, son, who said anything about being an English teacher?
Nothing.
If you trust me, Alex, it'll all work out. Hey, I got to run, but I love you.
Yes.
A week later, I get a letter from him. He had cut out an article in the Wall Street Journal. It was called The High Price of Living and Not Writing Well. And somewhere in my box of college stuff, I have to dig this out and frame it because the article focused heavily on business majors who had all these great ideas, but they couldn't communicate them.
Yes.
And my dad wrote me this beautiful letter. He said, you've always written beautifully. You speak, beautifully. You have the rest of your life to learn business, if that's what you want to do. And I'll be happy to be one of your teachers. Wow. So, I mean, just getting that, I mean, he knew me. He had me pegged. He never put any pressure on me at all to do this. He was smart enough to do that. So I graduated, in 4 years, had the grades, and he said, all right, well, you honored the deal. So, you go take, a year and work overseas, which is what I did. I worked overseas in New Zealand for a year selling mountaineering equipment, if you can believe that.
New Zealand mountaineering equipment. Okay.
Yeah. And I worked in Auckland, Queenstown, and New Plymouth for a company called Kathmandu. It would be a New Zealand equivalent of REI here in the States.
Okay.
And it was great because I worked in one of their flagship stores in Auckland, and then I ended up going to work in 2 startup stores in Queenstown and New Zealand. So I was halfway through my year, and I'm in the stock room of the Queenstown store because I had drawn the short straw that day. And my manager, Tessa, came upstairs and said, Alex, you need to come downstairs. There's 3 men downstairs saying we need to talk to the American.
Okay,
and my first thought
the American's in trouble. We're coming
I'm like, oh boy.
For the guy with the flag.
Yeah, I'm walking downstairs. I'm like, what did I do? I didn't get rowdy last night. What did I do? And I see these men. I said, gentlemen, hi, I'm Alex. What can I do for you? And they're like, oh yeah, you helped out a mate the other day with his gear. We're down here to visit him. Can you need to hook us up? We're getting on the mountain tomorrow. I'm like, oh,
Nice. Nice.
So I said, yeah, all right. Well, tell me what you're doing. What they're like, all right, we're snowboarding. I'm like, all right, great. I mean, like, hey, can I use this jacket? It was like a down jacket, kind of like the vest I'm wearing. I said, no, you don't want that. You'll shred it, if you fall. And, we had the conversation. I was talking about everything and, got them all set up. I rung them up and I looked at the register and I just said to myself, I just sold several $1,000s worth of mountaineering gear just by talking about my days off when I'm doing it myself.
Yes.
And I'm making New Zealand minimum wage, no commission. I'm living in a bunkhouse with 6 very smelly British guys. No offense to the British people, but these guys, they didn't have good hygiene.
We're going to pivot. We have British people listening. Well, let's get out of New Zealand. Yeah. We're okay there. Hey, DJ, what's up? I'm in the middle of recording the podcast.
I know, man.
No. Yeah. So, this guy, we want to talk about something different. He's trying to get his website and his Google My Business page going.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody knows you helped me to get to the 2 Comma Club, and be seen by a couple of million people. But this person wants to do something different. They're trying to run ads to their book of business, their model line campaigns and stuff like that.
I know, Kev.
Oh man. Well, DJ, talk to the people, man, so I can get back to the podcast. How can you help?
Yeah, man. So listen, I can help you by running monoline ads to your auto, your home, as well as optimizing your website, your Google business profile, and your social media outlets. We can do the exact same thing we've done for Kevin over the years and get you in front of millions of sets of eyeballs to help you grow your business. Contact Carroll Media today. Kev, let them know.
DJ, I appreciate you jumping in the podcast. Hit up Carroll Media. DJ, I gotta go. I gotta get back to the podcast.
I know.
Yeah. Fast forward, you come to realization you want to be here, and you've got this wonderful opportunity waiting for you in America. You've got this waiting for you. You come back. You work for a season in the agency as a sales producer.
Yeah, I came right in, and my dad didn't have me get my license right away. I mean, the first thing he did was he put me on the cancellation audit, which Kev, that's one of the roughest stuff. That's one of the roughest jobs you can do. He's like, all right, I want to test this kid's mettle to make sure he's got the fortitude to go and do it. My dad also had broke his foot during that time, so he's like, I also need a chauffeur. So I was chauffeuring him around, and it was really a good thing because I got to attend some Allstate meetings with Allstate leadership with him, and he just told me, just sit quietly, don't, and just listen. You got 2 ears, 1 mouth. So I picked up just a lot from doing that. So I did 3 months of just, grinding out cancellation audits. I got my license in May of 2004. And then from there, it was just like, all right, let's keep learning. Let's keep doing this. And my dad
going forward. You go ahead. I was going to say you launched your agency in 2019.
Yes, sir. I purchased the agency. I purchased one of my father's 4 agency locations in May of 2019. During my time in the 15 years that I worked for him, he got up to having 4 locations throughout the state of Maryland, serving the surrounding states. So it was incredible experience, a ton of trial by fire, and it was always my goal. Just from day one, I fell in love with it on day one. I knew it's what I wanted to do, and that was always my goal right there, to buy one of his agencies, which I did in May of 2019 or July 2019. Pardon me.
I love it. Just celebrated your 5th anniversary, and you're coming up on anniversary number 6. So, Alex, do me a favor. Invite me and the people watching and listening to this podcast to Severna Park, Maryland. I did a little bit of research on it. I see that it's a waterfront community. tell me the best part, but tell me about the natural disasters that hit your area, if any, that you really have to do a good job of preparing your customers so that, God forbid, if it happens, they have the right coverage.
So being a sailor, I can tell you that the Chesapeake Bay is a perfect wind tunnel. So, and we definitely have to keep an eye out for major storms, that come up through the seasons. I mean, that can create a lot of wind damage. It can also create a lot of flood damage. I mean, I can remember when I was in New Zealand, seeing Annapolis, the state capital neighboring Severna Park, underwater on the BBC due to Hurricane Isabel. So we've been lucky that the last major hurricane that made landfall was Irene in 2010, but that's the big thing I'm always, talking about with our home clients. I'm reiterating to them saying, listen, homeowners insurance does not cover flood damage. You have to have that flood policy through FEMA. I have one myself. I do not live on the water. My house is more than a mile away from the Magaly River. I'm not concerned with some biblical event rising the waters. I'm concerned about torrential rainstorms. I'm concerned about, we just had a big snowstorm. Snow eventually melts and what water has to go somewhere. Mud, mudslides also happen. You look at those poor folks in the middle of North Carolina who dealt with that. So, I mean, that's a big thing. I'm always reiterating to folks that, flood insurance, you ought to have it. FEMA's, revised things. It's very affordable, coverage to have, smart to have. I'm also explaining, how storm, deductibles work. And Maryland's lucky we have a very, specific, roofing endorsement that's available that every time I'm talking to a homeowner, if I see that endorsement is on there, I immediately go into, this is why you need to have it. This is why I've got it. This is why you should, have it. I'm not going to recommend anything less than what I have myself, to protect me and my family.
You gave a whole lot of gems and jewels right there with that answer. Oftentimes people, insurance agents, customers make a mistake of not buying flood insurance because they're not in a flood zone. And we often limit our thinking about water to being close to the water that it might rise up. But we forget about all the other causes of floods, melting snow, population density, and all those things that happen. And going back to your description, when you said the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, I know exactly where Severna Park is at right now. I've driven across that bridge quite a few times. One of the longest bridges in America, if not the longest. I don't know that. I love bridges, but that's all I needed for my landmark to get into the community and understand exactly where you are. Not too far from Baltimore, obviously not too far. Ravens fan, Orioles fan?
Always a Ravens fan and an Orioles fan. I was there for the inaugural game, in 96.
Wow. It doesn't get better.
My dad and I were there with my wife for Ray Lewis's final game, in M&T Bank when they made that incredible run. He said, we were there for Ray's first game, got to be there for Ray's last game in Baltimore. So, yeah.
All right. So, Alex, this is what I know about seeing videos at Ravens games. There's always people just playing music and dancing pretty crazy out front. Are you one of those people? Are you out there jamming with the crowd?
I don't get to many Ravens game, but when I do, I'll I'll jam with the crowd.
I love where the stadium is located on the water. That is just like such a amazing place to hang out between the restaurants and the things to see. If anybody's never been there, you got to go down there and enjoy some incredible crab. Probably the best crab in the country. Put in the comments if I'm wrong, or send me crabs if you've had better. Please send it to me and let me judge it later. But
you can't do better than Maryland.
So Alex, we talked football and baseball, but offline we talked about your two sports, competitive sailor and a self-described psychopath cyclist. Talk about those two. Talk about those two things.
Well, yeah, being growing up on the Chesapeake Bay, I'm a water rat, and I've been racing sailboats since I was 12 years old. So just single-handed boats, double-handed boats. I competed on a national level in high school, like we talked about, and also just raced locally on big boats. I've also raced to Bermuda on some big boats. So,
well, Alex, I'm going to use one of my timeouts there. Hey, Ray, what's up? I'm in the middle of shooting a podcast here.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Nothing, man. I'm talking to a couple of my guys. They're struggling with all this new stuff, man. It's taking them 20, 30 minutes to fill out a quote sheet.
That's way too long, man. I think we can help.
You sure, man? They're trying to do different stuff. They're trying to do like X-Day campaigns. They're cross-selling. They want to follow with people they meet at networking events.
Yeah, well, Canopy Connect, you just send them a link. What is that? You can text it to them. You can put it on your business card as a QR code, scan that up, and all they have to do is click on that link, find their carrier, their insurance carrier, and sign into it. And we're gonna go in and grab all the information you need to get a quote, all their policy information, their deck pages, drivers, vehicles, and enrich that with property data. We get all that stuff, right? So you don't have to spend 30 minutes on the call. It's all easy.
Well, shut the front door. Enough said. Guys, you heard it right here. Stop going old school. Use Canopy Connect. Thanks, Ray. I got to get back to the podcast.
Got it. See you.
You made me scared. You shook me up. You raced to Bermuda. You went into the Bermuda Triangle that I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Give me some markers. Where does this race start? Where does it end? And how long does it take?
The Bermuda Ocean Race starts off Annapolis. It ends in St. George's, Bermuda. So yes, it is sailing into Bermuda Triangle. The scariest part of the last time I did it was more in the middle of the Atlantic than in the Triangle, when I was off watch and we got the bang, all hands on. We got our safety gear on. The skipper of the boat said, "Alex, stand in the gangway. We don't want too many people on, just as things are going to get crazy." So I just stood in the gangway, just ready to jump out in case, they needed an extra hand. But we had drawers and gear flying everywhere. I'm seeing big rollers in the back of the boat and lightning strikes. I'm like, I was remembering what the safety at sea instructor said. The boat itself is the greatest lifeboat you will ever have, so don't get off the boat. So
okay.
It was a scary experience. I did think, is that life insurance policy gonna get paid out?
Alex, I'm sitting safe on ground in studio, but my stomach is underneath the floor. The thought of that journey, there's beauty in it. There's a competitor in it for you, but we use words like being in the fight or being in the eye of the storm, but you literally, clients in the Severna Park area of Maryland, if you want to be protected by an agent that's literally been in the eye of the storm and stayed on the boat, I got to use that mantra for business. There are times in business where the boat gets a little bit rocky and you feel like jumping, but the best advice, I'm sure, from your dad and your granddad has always been to stay on the boat.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. Blown away. Sailor days. Let's talk about cycling and how you've used your love of cycling to facilitate you giving back to the community.
So, very avid cyclist, and very proud to support a great organization here in Maryland called Bike AAA, Bike Advocates for Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. That's really just committed to improving the cycling areas in and about our community. Severna Park has home to the Baltimore-Annapolis Rail Trail, which, for anyone not familiar with this, the rail trail network, this is taking old train track lines, paving over them to make them multi-use trails for cyclists, for runners, for families, equestrians, rollerbladers, if there's any still left over from the 90s. And it's just, we've got...
That's me.
All right, my man. I still got mine in the closet, Kev. I'll take you on the trail.
I appreciate it.
But we've got, I think, one of the best rail trails, on the East Coast. And Bike AAA every year They had for last 10 years, they do an incredible event called the Lifeline, which is for the 100-mile, cyclists, which I've been crazy enough to do, the metric centuries, the 63 miles, which I've done the last 2 years, and then family rides, bike rodeos, for the kids. There's a great, organization in the area that helps teach kids how to ride a bike. So it's a great event. So when I became an agent back in 2019, that was the first organization I wanted to support and throw it to. So I've done everything from, I brought reusable grocery bags from my agency to the packet pickup. Cyclists love swag. There's always a lot of things you got to pick up, before a ride. So I would bring reusable grocery bags. I'd bring water bottles with, my agency name and contact, information. And everyone's like, I don't have to buy this. I'm like, no, you're doing the ride. This is, you're doing the best ride in Maryland, in my humble opinion. So, and we get people from all over the state. We get some out-of-state people, coming, to this. So I love supporting it because it showcases, our area. Lots of people, come in to ride it. So naturally, when they do that, they're going to frequent all the businesses, in our area. And so, yeah, that's an organization I'm very, very proud to support.
Alex, you've mentioned Annapolis a couple of times. What's your proximity to Annapolis? And can you talk a little bit about Annapolis, Maryland, for people that may not be familiar with the significance of what Annapolis means to the entire country?
So Annapolis is the state capital of Maryland. It's Severna Park is right smack in the middle between Baltimore and Annapolis. I'm probably a 10-minute car ride away from it. I mean, historically, Annapolis did once serve, as the capital of the United States. You go to Middleton's Tavern. That is a place where George Washington did actually, go sleep and frequent, and maybe had a few pints. It is also the sailing capital of America. I know folks in San Diego and Newport, Rhode Island like to argue that point, but it still says sailing capital of America when you enter that Annapolis sign. Plus, we have the United States Naval Academy there.
Yeah, no, absolutely phenomenal. I wanted you to mention that and definitely mention the Naval Academy there. So, Alex, one of the reasons why I'm doing the 50 podcast with 50 agents from 50 states is to highlight the unique knowledge and specialty of the local agent. I've been in the business for 4 decades. Bikes and boats are not a part of my social life. You just have, for anyone listening anywhere in the Maryland area, DMV area, if you're a cyclist or a boat person, one of the things I want you to take from this podcast is you're not talking to a person that sells boat insurance or bike insurance. You're talking to someone that lives this life. How much is your specialization or your special knowledge in these areas really helped you with clients? Because I don't see anybody with an 800 number or .com that can compete with your specialty knowledge in this area.
Nobody at an 800 number can compete, with a local agent. Nobody. I mean, and just with boat insurance, I grew up on the water. I love boats. So I've got a knowledge, of it. I also like I said, I maintain the attitude of a student. I used to joke when I still worked for my father. A lot of, my colleagues were like, how do you know so much about boats? I said, well, I have a secret website, which I will share with you, but it's very complicated, right? Get ready to write it down. You ready? They're like, yeah, ready. I'm like, okay, I'll spell it. It's complicated. GOOGLE. Google. I don't know everything out there, but I've learned just so much more about boats, power sports in general, just by, going on, learning from it, and you develop an expertise from it, not just, from doing it, but, also just, learning from people who do bigger stuff. So you go through that. And then, with the cycling, obviously a lot of people buy very high end bikes around here because we've got, such a great area, for it. I'm always, and I always say to somebody, hey, listen, don't rely on your homeowner's insurance to insure your bike. I mean, your homeowner's insurance is there for a catastrophic loss beyond the scope of what you can fix yourself. And you file a claim that can impact your rate. Now, there are companies out there that, where you can insure your bike specifically, which is what I do. I've got 3 bikes. One is quite nice, so I have it insured separately. When I did the 5-borough bike tour up in New York, I made sure that policy was up to date. I bought the most secure lock I could get, but I was like, oh boy, this is why this is why we have that. But also not just theft, like cyclists, there are crashes when you're on the road or on the trail. Accidents happen. I know guys who have been in pretty bad bike crashes. I know somebody, sadly, whose friend lost their life on a bike due to a motorist. So you gotta you want to protect the gear because of that investment, but also you want to protect yourself and your family with that too.
Most importantly, we can get another bike, but we definitely can't replace the person. Alex, I think in this conversation, I love the conversation we're having because we're tapping into so many areas that you're personally passionate about. Whenever we go there, your whole voice inflection and your life experience just come into view. So when you talk about power sports and you go back to your starting story selling gear overseas, and now you're not selling the product, but you're selling the promise to put people back together if anything were to go wrong on the bike or in the boat.
Yep.
How rewarding is that to help people that way?
It's very rewarding. I mean, I always knew I wanted to do something, Kev, where I was making a positive difference for somebody. That's initially why I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And you asked me earlier why I love being an Allstate agent. And the other thing I didn't say is I still get to be that teacher.
Yes.
I am still educating people daily. And I've definitely, there's been plenty of times in my career where the advice I've given has paid off and made a difference for somebody. And that's good. It's a good feeling to have, knowing that you have made that positive impact for somebody.
Alex, share one story with me where you've given someone the advice to get the right coverage, and unfortunately they had a situation, but thank God, listening to your advice, you were able to comfortably put things back together, be it that car, the home, the boat, the bike. Just share one story with the people of where you gave good advice. Maybe I'm using my own experience against me and I don't want flood insurance, so I don't want to insure something separately, but you say, Kevin, you got to do it.
So the one that always stands out to me is always still the first one that happened many, many years ago. I had a gal who moved to Baltimore from upstate PA. She was a teacher. We set up, the car insurance. I said, well, let's get your renter's insurance set up. She goes, I don't need it. I don't have anything. No, you do. You want it. You're going to save money on the auto insurance. With that savings, it's only going to cost you X. Nah, I can't afford it. I don't want it. I'm like, okay, we'll get, after I took care of her, I said, all right, I'm going to make sure this girl gets it. And she was a person who did not want to schedule her payments. She insisted on calling in every month to make her payments. So I always said, make sure I get that call. So for about 6 or 7 months, I just kept saying, you want to do this, you want to do this. And she eventually did it. And I'll never forget, she said, I'm only buying this to shut you up.
Excellent. We'll take that. If that's the reason, I'll go with it.
And that's what I said too. And I chuckled. I'm like, all right, game on. I won. Then a month later, she called me up and her apartment building burned down.
Wow.
And this, Kevin, is what always stands out to me. She's, said, Alex, I lost everything. I went to Walmart last night and I just bought a week's worth of clothes. So, you know, pair or two of pants, couple shirts, socks, underwear, pair of shoes, a new winter coat. I spent $400 at Walmart
Yes.
just to get a week's worth of clothes, no name brands, all basic, $400. And she's telling me this, and I'm just,
Right.
I'm just
Right.
stone frozen as she's telling me this. And, that was the first time where somebody, said, your advice made a difference. And we settled out that claim for, it was about $9,500, all things, considered, between furniture, bedding, electronics, clothing. And I always come back to that, because even though it wasn't a house, it wasn't, a house fire. It was, everything she had in the world. She was a young woman, starting out in her professional, career. I always just come back to that. I was so glad we were able to deliver on that promise.
You made a difference, dollars aside, you made a difference. You talked about furniture, clothing. One thing I've learned from customers, we talk about big ticket items, your living room set, your bedroom set. But I've had customers tell me, Kevin, what costs way more than anybody thinks, and you need to tell your customers? I'm like, what's that? She said, the little things, the towels, the sheets, the silverware, the things you already have that you don't think you're wealthy or they're not expensive. But if you had to go Walmart, Target, choose your preference, to buy those things again, you're like, holy crap, the old t-shirts. You've got a rotation, 5 that are 5 years old or older that are there. But if you got to buy them again, you're like, this is unbelievable that I have to spend this money. So thank God for you and for your advice. So we jumped right into the business and the backstory, but we started the call and you mentioned your family, that you guys all fighting something. So I'd be remiss if I didn't give you a chance to acknowledge your family. If you wanted to say hello to them and shout them out, that's a big part of the business. And speaking of working family, I really love what you said about your dad. The fact that he didn't miss events. I think that's something that's important to everybody. Someone asked me, Kevin, how do you measure success? And I don't know what answer they were looking for, whether they were looking for my book size or a dollar value, but I measure it by being there. I don't miss events. Not minor events, not major events. When it matters and it's on the calendar, I'm there. So talk about your family a little bit, and talk to me if you've been able to continue your dad's legacy, not of Allstate, but of being there for your children.
Definitely. That's why I did it. And he and I had a great conversation in August of 2020. We were in COVID. My son was born, in May of that year. My daughter was 4 at the time. So we hadn't seen them in months. And when we got to go see him for the first time, he and I, after everyone went to bed, we just sat out in the back porch. We were, having a beer, we were talking, and I was just over a year into being an agency owner, at that point. And obviously it was a very, very stressful year between, company changes and then a global pandemic. And he said, how are you doing? I said, well, Dad, I have never worked so hard in my life, and I've never been happier. And then I told him something that I said, I'm going to say something to you, and I hope you're not going to judge me for it. I hope that, you won't lose respect for me for saying this. I said, Dad, I'm not chasing you.
Wow.
You're a Hall of Fame agent. You have achieved incredible things, in your career, awards, trips, accolades. You've made this incredible impact. You've made the world, you left the world better than you found it. And you used that time for volunteering. I said, Dad, I'm not chasing you. I'm not chasing the accolades. I'm not trying to top you. The only thing I want to do is I just want to be a good, husband to Kyra. I want to be a good father to Sophie and Finn. I want to be there for them just like you were there for me. I want them to be happy to see me when I walk in the door and I have nothing in my hands. That's how I'm, measuring, my success doing this. And he got real quiet and he's like, thank God you figured it out.
Yes.
So it's
I love it, man. That's a phenomenal answer. And you have no idea how many agents and other business owners and people you help with that answer. The awards, the shiny objects, they go away.
Yep.
But every day that the young people, your children are doing something in your household, those days will never be repeated again. So I had a couple of places I want to go, but I was so wrapped in that answer. Okay, I got it. I'm back. Man, you had me. I was holding on to every word. Okay. So, Alex, you were born in the best mentorship situation. Granddad, dad, aunts, uncles, all Allstate agents. And you were taught to do the business a certain way. Fast forward to 1 year after becoming an agent, the world changes, and everything that worked for them may not work for you now. How have you pivoted and adjusted from how they marketed and built their agency to what you need to do digitally to be present and to promote and build your agency now?
So and coming in 2004, to someone so tenured, it was the perfect time to come in because I got that mix of the old school, which I still do. I still send mailers, and do those old school methods. But yeah, I mean, we've had to develop into the new school. We've had to, go where the eyeballs are. I mean, that is, online, on social media. So like I've said, like I maintain the attitude of a student. I'm not the smartest guy in the room.
Yes.
But so I go and find the smartest people, in the room to teach me, how to do this. Your fellow New Yorker, Christina Shaw, she's
My
been
buddy.
a
Yes.
phenomenal, teacher for it. And I got to get on the phone with her because I said, all right, I'm still not fully grasping how to do this. And, she's always like, but you're doing it. I'm like, I know. I'm focusing on being perfect later. Let's just,
Yes.
let's just do it. So Christina's been, a great mentor, had some great conversations with Nick Sacca
Yes.
as well. People like Danielle Cameron,
Yes.
teaching me about like, all right, everyone says they're a Google expert, like, all right, how can I just, be more, how can I be more present? How can I get more, more top of mind when someone, Google's like insurance in Severna Park or Anne Arundel County, like how can I be, right up there? So it's been a combination of just, learning, on how to do it and just adapting, how to do it. So going to the people, also, listening to podcasts. I listen to Gary V quite a lot when it's winter here. So I'm doing a lot of my riding on my, what I call my poor man's Peloton, my old steel bike on a little bike trainer. So normally I have my Bose on. I'm just listening to Gary V while I'm doing the reps, and I'm like making mental notes to myself, like, okay, try this, talk to somebody about this. So it's been just trying things. See how they work and just keep adapting. And then, but most importantly, it's just continuing to do it and just put yourself out there and be authentic as to who you are. I don't just go and just say, hey, buy an insurance policy from me. Nobody's,
No.
gonna do that. But I go out there and I like to be the guy that makes a person smile, because if I make a person smile, they're gonna remember me. If you're gonna be memorable, that's when you're gonna stand out. And when people think like, all right, they get that notice from Geico, Progressive, whoever, like, oh my God, this is go up. I got to do something. Alex, I should talk to Alex.
Yes.
So I've just continually doing it, just continually learning from it and talking to people who are doing the best at it. That's really been the best strategy.
Alex, I love your answer. So coming into my two last questions, you're riding bikes, you're cycling, you're doing the boat thing, you're taking care of the family, and you're running a business. How do you wind down at the end of the day?
Wind down. When? Who has? I don't understand.
That's the podcast, man. I got people here to help other people wind down. How do you turn it off, man? How do you decompress? How do you do it?
So Craig Wiggins always gave a great piece of advice saying, be where your feet are.
Yes.
So even though I'm in my home office down in my basement, I always make sure that, when I'm in upstairs, like, okay, I'm home. I'm here with Kyra. I'm here with Sophie and Finn, and I want to be with them. So it's spending a lot of time, with my kids because they're at the young age right now. I'm never going to get that back. So a lot of times in the evening, it's with them. It's getting school lunches ready. It's helping with homework. It's doing the puzzle. And then when I finally have that little bit of extra time, I'll try to do something, simple. Like like I said, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I unwind, doing that way. So even when I'm packing lunches for the next day, I'm relaxing, with that. Some nights I'll just go out for a walk. Sometimes it's by myself. Sometimes I'll just text a neighbor who is in a similar field and in sales and say, hey man, dad walk, let's go. And
yes.
He's like, I'll be ready in 10 minutes. And we talk about, our respective days, our respective challenges. We give each other, advice. And then, I'm a psychopath. Sometimes I get on the bike. Right now, if I'm doing it in the evening, it's on the trainer, downstairs in the basement. But when we get a little bit more sunlight, out there, I always want to schedule that time just to get out there in the evenings. Cause I love watching the sunrise, when I'm on my bike. I also love watching the sunset while I'm on my bike. It's good perspective. So just like I tell my wife, hey, when do you want to go to yoga? I want to give you that. You work hard, too. Also scheduling that time, that time in to have some time as well, just to mentally decompress, from the day. So a lot of podcasts, going for walks, spending some time, with, friends or my wife, and just getting out on the road. Miles are my meditation.
Man, Alex, you closed this thing so strong. You gave us a couple of hashtags. So if you're listening or watching this, my mindset is always in social media frames. So if you're listening to this, put hashtag dadwalk and put hashtag psychopath, not psychopath, psychopath. So if you're listening on the live stream, if you're watching this later, hashtag dadwalk. All seriousness, Alex, men don't talk. Men don't talk. So you doing that to a buddy, let's do a dad walk. My God. I have doing this podcast with a lot of ladies. We're talking about those things, but my personal takeaway from this will be hashtag dad walk. I got to get out there and do it. So ladies and gentlemen, Alex, final words, take another 30, 60, anything that you want to share with the people, anything you want to talk about and ask, drop that and I'll close us out.
Last thing I'm just going to say to everybody is, and I'm stealing this directly from Gary Vee, but patience is a superpower. And especially in the insurance field, I mean, it's tough. We have to deliver results and we have to deliver it quickly, and that can be scary. But I always come back to say, like, patience is a superpower. You trust in the process of what you do. Those results, will come. This is something I tell myself. This is something I tell my team members. So remember, just patience is that superpower. And again, just love that game more than what the game gives you. It just gives you an incredibly happy life.
That's amazing and hard to follow. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Schwab, absolutely phenomenal. Thank you, everybody, for watching the live stream. Thank you in advance for watching on YouTube. Thank you in advance for listening on a podcast, whatever platforms you listen to. And also thank you in advance for supporting our sponsors, Carol Media and Use and Canopy Connect. Alex Schwab.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to
That
talk to
was
you, my friend.
phenomenal, man. That was